Hello, control freaks out there. This is for you. If you're the kind of guy who feels like everything is on your shoulders, like you have to have all the answers, if you don't do it yourself, it's not going to get done. In this episode, we're going to break down how leadership can turn into a trap, why trying to control everything actually weakens your impact, and the 3 shifts you're going to need to make to lead from power instead of force and pressure. Welcome back to The Inside Man. I'm Kadi, and you can call me GK. And today we're tackling a leadership challenge that most high-performing men don't realize they're facing. This is when control turns into a burden instead of a tool for success. Hello, control freaks out there. This is for you. If you're the kind of guy who feels like everything is on your shoulders, like you have to have all the answers, right? Like if you don't do it yourself, it's not going to get done. This episode is for you. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. If that's been your mantra, or you're going to like this, because there's no freedom and there's a ton of suffering if we don't work on this. In this episode, we're going to break down how leadership can turn into a trap and why trying to control everything actually weakens your impact, and the 3 shifts you're going to need to make to lead from power instead of force and pressure. But before we dive in, hit the subscribe button, click the bell. Woo! 2,000 plus and counting subscribers, man. I couldn't do it without you being there, because that has me be here. So I'm super excited, and thank you for doing that. And if this resonates with you, share with a friend, because your leadership and their leadership should be freeing, not draining. And then lastly, see this little QR code right here? Take a little snapshot of that bad boy and get to GaryKadi.com. Got the new website for you, and you'll see my new program in there for high achieving men. All right. Look, why leadership can feel like a burden. My friend Simon Bowen of the Models Method, I'll never forget this. He and I had this discussion about men in leadership positions and, all the frustration that goes along with it and all the things that have happened, the burdens that we're carrying. And he asked this question and polled super high CEOs and said, when was it that you made the decision to make all these sacrifices and suffer, like not seeing your kids, games, and like not taking care of your body and not taking care of all this stuff that we end up not taking care of because we're just like, we can do one job, and that's like leader of an organization. And he said, every single one of them did not choose to be there. It was the evolution of the mind taking them there and taking them there and taking them there. And they never really chose to go there. It was just like the natural progression of things, but there was no real choice in the matter. Ultimate freedom, and that is what the Inside Man is about, is you having freedom, the ultimate freedom, which is you have choices. So high performers take on too much responsibility. You started leading because you wanted to, but now it's like what the evolution is. I was just talking to the person that helped me write my first book. And he said, Gary, do you remember what your goal was? He said, if you could have 5 coaching clients at $100,000 a piece, you were going to be ecstatic. And that was like 20 some years ago. And, after 7,000 clients all across North America, dentists and entrepreneurs alike, he was laughing. So it kind of like when you're good at one thing, you start evolving. The problem is that you're then you're doing things that you didn't sign up for. Like some of us, I'm a coach. I am a coach at heart. That's what I do. And a mentor. I can listen to what's going on. I can listen to what's underneath. I can find the blind spot. I can move somebody where they're stuck with a myth or a belief or an unwillingness, and then move them forward in a way that they never thought, and get them to the other side and have a life beyond their wildest dreams. That's my core competency. So when it comes to being a CEO, I had to be a visionary. I had to be, I had to manage solvency in a way. I had to deal with employees, all these things that I'm horrible at. So we kind of default into a life rather than design a life. What this is about is like really getting beyond carrying the weight of the business, your family, your team, because you believe it's your job how to make everything work. And the need for control comes from a deeper fear. See, many leaders struggle to delegate, not because they don't trust others. Well, there's some of that in there because they've done it and they've handed it off. But because they're afraid of losing control, that's really what's underneath it. Control feels safe, but it also keeps you stuck. See, real leadership isn't about doing everything. It's about empowering others. And the best leaders don't micromanage. That's just like you're going to get puppets around you if you're micromanaging in a certain level of employee, team member. And they create systems and develop people and then really trust the process. See, if you don't shift from doing to delegating, you are going to burn out. And the Inside Man is all about not busting your burnout. So here's the question, key question for today's session. Are you leading your business, your family, and your life? Or are you just managing everything yourself? Like, are you really leading, which doesn't have doing in it? It doesn't have people coming to you over and over. Or are you just really just managing everything yourself? And with that question, I want to share my own personal experience because, dude, I am a control freak. And it really worked till it didn't. Just like alcohol. Alcohol worked for me until it didn't. I had to learn this the hard way. I used to believe that if I wanted something done right, I had to do it myself. And I didn't want to waste the time training somebody. And because they're going to just leave eventually anyway, right? I held on to decisions. I didn't collaborate with people on decision making, including my own wife. Like, I was just like, I'm not even going to get in that discussion, right? I controlled every detail. Everything had to run through me. And for a while it worked. But like what happens is in a business, you become the bottleneck. The bottleneck of your growth of your business and your life really has to do with you and the belief systems, the structures, the support team around you. One day I realized I wasn't leading. I was just playing cleanup. I was just one big firefighter. I was exhausted, frustrated, drowning in my own responsibilities that I created for myself. And worse, the team was disengaged because I never let them step up and show up. My need for control wasn't helping. It was holding everything back. And I couldn't let go because I was like, well, everything's going to fall apart if I let go. So not only did my business start running better and more efficiently when I began to let go, but I had to learn how to let go responsibly. And I learned the difference between two forms of control. The control that I put in was that of a dictator, Mussolini, Hitler, like those guys, like you do this and you do this. And it's like this word I looked up. It's called paternalism. And paternalism is like really where you dominate the group of people and below them, they're like just, exhausted and disempowered because of the control that's placed upon them. And I'm not saying you're a dictator, but I'm just saying I'm trying to paint the picture here for you. And by the way, we have a lot of moms. I get a lot of texts and direct messaging from moms saying, hey, this, I know you talk about guys, but it applies to me too. And we also have a lot of young people that are breaking out in leadership. So this all applies to you, even if you don't have your business yet, because, we treat the home as a business, right? And we treat, if you're leaving college, it's like you treat your career as a business till you get going. So the key here is letting go with the type of control that lets you delegate. And that is that of like traffic signals. This is a form of healthy control where you're not, muscling, but you're putting in agreements and structure. Like we all agree that, you stop at a red and you go in a green. Now, when somebody breaks that agreement, that's when things can go awry. So this is the concept I want you to begin to get for your business, which is understanding that putting in healthy controls, boundaries, agreements, systems, and structures, when you can then let it go, when you have analytics and KPIs and automation and a dashboard to run your business by. So you're controlling from like an air traffic controller place, not from the guy who goes like this and is like, and you can't be everywhere. So that's why you get stuck. So it was a game changer when I learned the difference between dictatorship type of control, micromanaging, to the healthy controls, that of a putting in structures of like a traffic signal. And, we don't go for our goals. You know what we do as business owners? We default to the level of systems, processes, and structures we have in place. Now, some of you like me, I didn't have the patience to create those things. So there's a way to do it where you can delegate all this stuff and you don't have to do it all. But if you're sick and tired of being in the middle and want to decentralize, this is for you. Let me share a client story with you. I had a coaching client of mine. I'm going to call him Steve just to protect the innocence here. of these individuals again, who was running a crazy successful, company, but he was completely miserable. He was working 12-hour days, constantly putting out fires, never had time for himself, let alone his family, because he was putting his family and his health and his wellness and everything before that. But when I asked him why he didn't delegate more, he said, I just don't trust anybody to do it right. He had this perfectionism thing, which is that gets you to have your business be successful. But at some point you have to stop. What gets you to success here becomes the barrier to go to the next level. The thinking that might be here, the type of systems you have, the type of team members you have, and you need to pivot. It's not you're going to keep pushing on the gas through a successful thing. You're going to fall off the cliff, if you will. Here, what I'm saying is you have to pivot back. And the success that got you to $500,000 is going to be in the way of the thinking and the things that are needed in your business to get to $1 million, to get to 5, to get to 100. So you have to know the evolution of a business and really understand, I'm going to give you the analogy of if you ever drive a stick shift. A stick shift, you have to do something counterintuitive. You have to press in the clutch. You have to open and change gears. See, if you don't do that, your motor burns out. You just get stuck. You can't get past where you are. And so that's what I'm introducing here. And that's what I did for Steve, because he realized when we dug deeper that the real issue wasn't trust. It was fear. What's underneath trust for people is the fear, and going to the fear, not I need to trust people more, right? There's two places to look from. You either go into relationships that you trust them, and then you evaluate, or you go into no trust and somebody has to earn their trust. I used to be that latter guy, the guy who, you have to earn you have to prove that I can trust you. And what I found was I never could trust anybody, because I would filter through things that they did or didn't do that were misaligned to what I was doing. And I would see you can't trust that. So I was actually looking for reasons not to trust people. And if you're looking for reasons not to do something, you will find them. If you're looking for reasons to do that, you'll find that. And I also learned that people can't read my mind. So when I brought things that, coming from the new viewpoint of saying, I trust you, and then you just did something that really hurt my trust, or I would bring that conversation and I would learn it was my filter or process once I, had that conversation with that individual. So it's really profound, this distinction, trust and fear that goes along with it. And he was afraid that if he let go, he would lose relevance. He would lose control. He maybe even lose his identity as the guy who runs everything. See, that's another key part to this as I unpack this. When I decentralize the owner of a business and move them out of the middle, all their fears and weaknesses show up when you pull the owner out. When I transitioned out of the middle of the business, it took me 2 full years to get out of every position that I was in, because I have, we all have this genius as business owners, and we have our fingers in it. Here's what the other thing I learned, and this is a blind spot for us. I did not know that if I wasn't wanted, I got loved by being needed and wanted. That was dysfunctional love, because people had to come through me, and I felt needed, I felt wanted. And one of two things happen in life between two people. There's either love or a call for love. See, I had a call for love because I was I didn't let people love me, and I wasn't letting love in. And so it was deeper. And see, once you start transforming to the principles of inside man, that love exists already, you don't have to do anything to earn it. And then maybe there's shame and guilt on there that you need to deal with. That's different. I needed to do that. And then what's present once you do that is just love. And love really, when you're doing that, you have connected relationships. And when you have connected relationships, the team trusts you, and then they'll come to you and you feel safe. This is another thing that happens. This past week, we got invited to 6 things from people. And when I was drinking, I didn't get invited to anything. I got invited to so much stuff. My wife and I are having the time of our lives. We're almost exhausted because we get home late and we're up early having coffee with people. And it's the best thing ever. And we were never asked to do all these things. So it's really cool. And the same thing was happening for Steve. Like, he was alienating himself from his team. And see, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your systems and your team's willingness to drive it. But if you're training them that they have to go through you, they only come up so high. One of the things we learned is once we decentralize the owner, everybody steps up. And the people that you think might step up don't always. And the people that you thought were long gone and should have left the company step up in a way. It's very profound, but they have no space to do that. And once Steve did that, we put those traffic signal structures in place in his business and his practice. And he started letting go and he started looking at the numbers, and the numbers and the bonus system that we put into businesses are the alarms for where you need to put your attention and intention. So he has this traffic signal system inside of his business now, and it's running like a machine, and he's out in the middle of it. So the moment you start building these systems and trusting your team, your stress levels drop, your business grows. And for the first time in years, you have space. See, I want to create space. And the more space I help you create, the better you can think, you can strategize, you can connect with people, spend time with them rather than rushing to your next appointment, and actually enjoy the journey, because that's the game. So here's the moral of the story. If you think control equals power, you're mistaken. True power comes from letting go responsibly, putting in the structures and systems, and let that drive your business. So I want to teach 3 things to you right now. How to lead without carrying the weight alone. Here's the shift number 1. Move from the doer to the delegate. Your job isn't to do everything. If you're doing everything, it's to make sure that everything gets done. That's different than doing the job. Your job is to rise above and look down on the systems, processes, capabilities, analytics. And then you just have to have controls in place to make sure things are getting done. People are stopping at stoplights, yielding at yield signs, that kind of thing, right? But if you're constantly in the weeds, you're not leading, you're just managing, and at best. Or you probably have a job in your business and you're trying to be a manager, and that never goes well. So here's your action step. I want you to make a list of everything you handle daily. Everything. Just take a step back and through your day, have a little pad down and start writing it down. Now highlight what only you can do and you want to do. You see, true freedom comes from doing what you were meant to do, what you were born into, your genius. And then what you want to do is notice at the end of that list. And by the way, you're going to want to cut at it a couple of times. And I suggest you get your wife to look at it, because she's going to go, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You know who wants you to do that? The unevictable inner roommate that wants you to feel needed and wanted. Feeling needed and wanted is shrinking your world, not allowing you to be totally free, and listening to the voice in your head. And that's the wrong thing to listen to. Start letting go of that. Start letting go of that and get into facts about what you have to do and what you're going to delegate. Then what you could do on that list is go, and who could I delegate this to? And how to do it. So it begins a business plan of decentralizing you. And if you don't know how to do this, or I had to have a guy come in to get rid of clothes. He was a stylist. Obviously, I like this kind of style too. This is Chatham Cape Cod, by the way. If you're asking, I know I'm going to get some questions on that. By the way, make sure you comment. Make sure you comment. Like, dude, what's up with your Chatham? Is that Chatham, New Jersey, or Chatham, Massachusetts, or whatever? Like, that's the kind of stuff I want to hear about. So listen, this delegate list gives you your actions. It gives you your ability to start stepping out, and it's your pathway out. So it's really key that you focus going from the doer to the delegator, make a list. And then if you don't have ways to do that, look, you can hire somebody who can pull it out of you, because I had to hire this stylist. And you know what, the stylist, it wasn't about going shopping. It was about clearing the closet out. And here's what I've learned. There was no space in my closet. I couldn't buy another thing. I just keep buying and hoarding and scrunching everything together. I haven't worn anything. He's like, if you haven't worn this in a year, it's going out. And by the way, I ended up with one jacket. That was it. Everything else was like, oh, my grandmother, she was 97 years old, granny trucker, and she drove a tractor trailer, and we had these Keep on Trucking t-shirts, and I wanted to keep it. Like, there's sentimental stuff. There's stuff that doesn't fit anymore because I lost 45 pounds. I mean, all of it. He just took it all out. here's what happens. When you create space in your closet, just like when you create space in your head or you create space in your business or your calendar, you can then fill it with goodness. Now I have a wardrobe that I love, that things fit. And then when I bring something new in, I get rid of something else. And, my hangers have like spaces between them and it can breathe. I look in there and I don't gasp. You're gasping every day because you're so packed inside your closet. So there you go. It's really key to move from doer to delegator, and that's how you do it. Building systems, not bottlenecks. See, if your team has to come to you for every decision, you're a bottleneck. There's 3 types of team members. There's the independent team member. They're over there and they're not even connected. There's the dependent team member, which most micromanagers have. They're dependent on you to make the decisions. The gifted and where you want to get your team members is to the interdependent team member. They know what the responsibility is in their role. They make the people around them better. I call it the Steve Nash of team member, the interdependent team member. So the best leaders create processes and they begin to develop interdependent team members, ones that are responsible for their area of accountability, make the people around them better, and your life starts to function without it. I want you to choose a repetitive task that you handle and build a system so it could be done without you. Again, here's the action step. Find out what you're doing over and over. I was saying the same thing over and over. So I filmed a webinar and now I send people to the webinar. I wrote 6 books. I wrote a book because people are asking me like, how do you do this and that? And how do we do it? So I go, here's the book. So like it can do the speaking for me. And now I spend a lot more time doing what you see me doing, podcasting and coaching high achieving men. And I also do work with seniors in college starting out to create their future. And I do that pro bono for anybody who makes that request. I love working with younger people and I just do that as my gift. The next thing is you develop people, not processes. So the strongest teams don't just follow orders. They can think for themselves. It's that interdependent team member. You see, and now you might have team members that have been trained to actually be puppets, right? Like, don't think because they don't want to take the risk because, I was the guy who would make somebody wrong if they made a mistake. So of course they're going to ask me. So undoing that is going to take a little bit. And one of the things that I recommend here for this action step is the more that you develop people around you, the less pressure you carry. You want to identify one person in your life or business that can take on more responsibility. So like, I'll give you my story. 10 years ago, I met this young gal who I thought was one of the sharpest gals in the world. And she was my administrative assistant. She was my right hand. And what I noticed was she was smart as a whip. And what I noticed was she could think on her own. And I didn't do this with my entire team. I did it with one person first. And her name is Kelly. And she came with me in every department and we systematized each department and she learned everything. And then I noticed that I could have her, run a department. Then I noticed that she could, she ran all of our live events. Like we're going to have a live event this year. And, she's not doing it. Obviously, she has CEO responsibility. She replaced me as the CEO. But find that one diamond in the rough that is hungry to learn, that she was able to deal with me. See, she didn't get hooked by, like I was just a forced guy. Like she was very grounded. So it was a nice transition to somebody like that. And now she leads differently. Like we always laugh. She's like, Gary, you were the Derek Jeter. And it's like, how do I replace you? She didn't. She created her own lane. And obviously she's a female. Obviously she's a millennial, leading on Gen Z. She has a whole different viewpoint of life, but that's what was needed in the succession of a leader. And so developed Ryan, who is an extraordinary COO. So I had a CEO, COO, and they basically were the buffer between me and my team because I'm horrible at team. I led like crap. And why I led like crap is because the way I talk to myself harshly, like, you dumbass, you're stupid. Why'd you do that? Like, that's the way I talk to people. Now, I didn't call them dumbasses and stupid, but my force was like, you dumbass, you do that, right? And that didn't serve them, but they could read my beingness was like so harsh. It was because I was so harsh on me. And with Ryan and Kelly, they didn't take that personally. And And they were able to like work through that because they knew I had real goodness coming from me. So anyway, that's the key thing when you're developing. Don't try to develop a whole organization. Develop a few people that are going to replace you slowly as you put in this traffic structure of control, and they end up running it and they know how to run it. And then you can easily step out. And that's what happened. I had an exit plan and I exited. Now I'm on the board. I still contribute to that group, Next Level Practice, my former company. And I love it because I get to share my wisdom there, but I don't have to be in the day-to-day operations, and they're killing it. They're extraordinary. They're doing great. So here's the conclusion and the call to action. The key takeaway is leadership should give you freedom, not change. You should not be in your personal prison. If you're carrying the weight of everything, it's time to shift from control to empowerment of those around you. And here's your call to action. Go to GaryKady.com, go into the coaching session, and see where I help high achievers build their businesses and lives that don't require them to do everything themselves. If this hits home, get on my calendar. We'll chat about it. And also send it to a friend that really needs to hear this. This is Gary Kady, GK, reminding you that real leaders don't carry the weight alone. And I'll see you in the next episode.